Forgiving someone in silence and never speaking to them again isn't what most people think it is. It isn't bitterness. It isn't unfinished business. It might be the most complete forgiveness there is. Have you ever quietly forgiven someone and then just never gone back? If people around you couldn't understand why, stay with this one. By the end, you'll probably understand yourself a little better than they ever did. Most people think forgiveness only comes in two forms. Either you say the words out loud, "I forgive you," and things go back to how they were, or you never really let it go at all, and you just carry it quietly instead, telling yourself you're over it when you're not. There's the third option most people never talk about. Some psychologists call it silent forgiveness, releasing the weight of what happened, without ever needing the other person to know, and without ever needing the relationship back. Forgiveness and reconciliation feel like they should be the same thing. They aren't. Reconciliation requires two people. It requires trust being rebuilt, contact being restored, both sides agreeing to try again. Forgiveness requires exactly one person: you. We conflate the two because we're taught that a resolved conflict looks a certain way. A conversation, an apology, spoken and accepted, a handshake. So when someone forgives quietly and simply stops engaging, it can look, from the outside, like they never forgave at all, like they're still holding on to something. But watch closely, and it looks different from resentment. Someone who has actually let go doesn't need the last word. They don't rehearse the argument they never got to finish. They don't need the other person to understand what they did, or admit it, or apologize for it. The story simply stops needing an ending. That's the part people misread most often. Walking away and never speaking again isn't always unfinished business. Sometimes it's the opposite. It's what someone does once the business is finished. Once, somewhere inside them, the debt has already been settled. Here's where it gets counterintuitive. Because two people can do the exact same thing for opposite reasons. And you can't tell which one you're looking at unless you know what to look for. Think about the difference between someone who avoids a person out of anger and someone who avoids them out of peace. From the outside, the behavior looks identical. Same silence, same distance. But one of them is still in the argument, replaying it, waiting for a version of events where they finally win. The other one isn't in the argument at all anymore. They left it behind so completely that going back would feel like stepping into someone else's old life. There's a real cost to insisting forgiveness must include reconciliation. It keeps people re-entering situations that hurt them, just to prove, to themselves or to someone else, that they've moved on. You've probably felt that pull, the urge to go back one more time, just to show you're fine now. But moving on was never about proving anything to anyone. It was about no longer needing to. This is easy to miss because we're taught to read closeness as the finish line of any conflict. Two people, back in the same room, laughing again. That's what resolution is supposed to look like. But sometimes the healthiest ending isn't a reunion. Sometimes it's a quiet release that never gets witnessed by the person it was about. None of this means forgiveness is easy or fast, or something you can decide to do in a single moment. It usually isn't. It's less like a decision and more like a slow shift in weight. The same memory, but lighter each time you carry it, until one day, it barely registers at all. And it doesn't mean the other person was right, whether what happened didn't matter, or that you owe them softness if they came back around. Silent forgiveness isn't about them. It was never really about them. It's what happens when you stop needing anything else from a story that already ended. So if you've forgiven someone and still don't want them back in your life, the thing we started with, that's not a contradiction. And it isn't coldness either. That's often exactly what it looks like when the weight is actually gone. Not performed, not announced to anyone, just quietly, finally, put down. Maybe now you know why.